Hi, and welcome to another episode of Virtual Paddock. Now, first of all, Happy New Year. I hope it's gonna be a good year. No pun intended, by the way. And in today's episode, I'm gonna do a quick preview for the Formula E Marrakesh ePrix. Then the news once again as just a quick rundown, as I already did in the last episode. And since last week Michael Schumacher turned 50, I do want to talk about him as well. So, let's go. It's the Marrakesh ePrix tomorrow, the second race of Season 5, and Formula E's third time at Marrakesh. Last season's winner there was Felix Rosenqvist from Mahindra, but he's no longer in Formula E now. Well, he still did the Adria ePrix, but starting this weekend, Pascal Wehrlein will be in that cockpit instead. Now, after the Adria ePrix, a lot of drivers had complained about the attack mode and how it was implemented, because essentially it had resulted in a lot more time lost by driving through the activation zone than the time gained with that power boost. And the FIA have announced plans to improve it for Marrakesh, though they have not announced any further details yet. The Scuderia Ferrari has a new team principal. Maurizio Arvabene has been replaced by technical director Mattia Binotto. The Generation 2 Formula E cars will soon be available in rFactor 2. Studio 397 recently published a teaser image showing the car, which will be the second Formula E car for RF2, since the first generation car had already been released as part of the Energized Formula E DLC pack in late 2017. Pascal Wehrlein has been in talks with Ferrari to possibly become their new simulator driver. Now, previously, Wehrlein had actually been part of the Mercedes Junior program, but he left at the end of 2018. And he has now confirmed that he has been talking to Ferrari, but there's no mention yet of any contract having been signed. Slightly Mad Studios have been announcing quite a few things. They already announced Project Cars 3 a while ago, and recently they came out saying that it'll be, quote-unquote, a spiritual successor to Shift, but with all of the sim goodness everyone appreciates. And now they've also announced the development of a console called the Mad Box. Renault, Racing Point, McLaren and Ferrari have announced their reveal dates for their 2019 Formula 1 cars. They'll be presenting their cars in that order on consecutive days from the 12th of February to the 15th of February. McLaren have hired Andreas Seidel as managing director for their Formula 1 team. Now, previously, Seidel was the boss of Porsche's LMP1 program, but he does have Formula 1 experience as well, having worked with BMW from 2000 until 2009. Now, recently, Michael Schumacher turned 50 on the 3rd of January. And Formula 1 on social media has been paying tribute to him through a lot of content, like videos about his career and interviews with some of his biggest rivals. And I've decided that I want to talk about him as well, because he was my childhood hero. When I was young, in the early 2000s, Michael always was my favorite. Seeing him in the Ferrari with the Marlboro livery, hearing that V10 sing, those are some amazing memories. Now, obviously, in terms of excitement back then, it probably wasn't the best era in F1. Though, back then, being a fan of the one at the top, it didn't bother me that much yet. And, I was a kid, and the exciting thing for me was seeing Michael win. Plus, we did have some exciting seasons back then. 2000 was a pretty close fight. And 2003 as well. Also, I still remember just how heartbroken I was in 2006 when his engine failed during the Japanese Grand Prix. He had just taken the championship lead in the previous race, and he was equal on points with Alonso, but Michael had one more win. But in the next race, he retired from the lead and Alonso won, And back then, that was just horrible for me. Now, his return in 2010 with Mercedes obviously wasn't the most successful, with just one podium when he finished in P3 at the 2012 European Grand Prix. But I did enjoy seeing him in Formula 1 again. And then in the last few days of 2013, the news of the skiing accident, quite a shock for me, obviously. But at that time, I wouldn't have expected things to end up this badly. It did become more obvious though as time went on. And while I obviously don't know his exact condition, I do think that the lack of updates does speak for itself. And it's heartbreaking, really. Keep fighting, Michael. Though I think that it's also that his family wants to keep things as they were, in the sense that he's always kept his private life away from the public. Even during his active racing career, you'd never hear much about his personal life. And now, around his 50th birthday, one of the ways for me to honor him was driving some of his cars in sim racing games. I took the F2004 in Assetto Corsa for a few laps around Spa, which I think was actually his favorite track, and also obviously where he made his debut, and a few other cars as well. The Jordan 191, which was his very first Formula 1 car, the Ferrari F310, which was his first Ferrari, and yesterday I also did some laps in the Mercedes F1 W03, which was his last F1 car. I did a few laps around Interlagos with it in Automobilista. And during all those drives, I just like to think about Michael and the memories that I have watching him. Because I don't think I'd be into racing this much if it hadn't been for him. I mean, I've always been interested in cars, ever since I was a little boy. But without Schumacher, F1 never would have become this popular in Germany. And he inspired a generation of young racers. Best example probably here in Germany, Sebastian Vettel, but many others as well. And I have to say that to me personally, Michael Schumacher is the greatest F1 driver of all time. Now, I know some might disagree with this, and some might, for example, say that Senna is the greatest. And honestly, if Senna hadn't died in 1994, we might have been able to see another one of the most legendary championship fights of all time. Let's face it, both could be absolutely ruthless. Schumi wasn't the only one to intentionally crash into his championship rival. But the reason that, to me, Michael is the greatest is not necessarily because he's the most successful Formula 1 driver of all time. But it's also because I grew up watching him, and he's the one who inspired my love for racing. So, that's it for this episode. I hope you enjoyed it. And I'm planning to start doing videos in the next few days. Keep an eye on the YouTube channel and the Twitter and Facebook pages. And until then, use the downforce and see you soon.